I had the opportunity to sit down with Kevin Babb, CCXP, to discuss his 16 years of strategic leadership experience as a managing director and vice president at the helm of large contact centers. Kevin has been an inspiration for me and countless others for leadership potential and development. I have witnessed firsthand his thoughtful, innovative, and inclusive approach to leadership and strategy, which have transformed work cultures to improve both customer and staff experience. Leading a department of over 500 staff through tremendous change, including a move to completely virtual 2 years prior to the pandemic. He clearly has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to strategy. I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to report up to him for the entirety of my leadership career, and for today, him sharing his experience with strategy. Thank you, Kevin. How do you know your strategy is working?
You want to have a process for measuring your strategies, and I've used the balanced scorecard approach and developed it with our team around their people, your processes, your financials, and your customers. Those are the 4 areas of the balanced scorecard, and that's what your strategies are going to be laid out to reach your goals in each of those areas. You're going to come up with key performance indicators to measure. Your metrics will help you determine whether or not you're meeting those KPIs. And again, it's cascading. It's very important to cascade those strategies and initiatives down to tactical level so that everyone in the organization is working towards those strategies and they know how their work impacts the overall organizational strategies. And you measure it on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, and it's critically important, I find, to engage everybody in the process. So in my former role, we met with my leadership team on a monthly basis to go over the scorecard. We met with our leadership team on a quarterly basis with the supervisors and the broader group. We educated them on the scorecard. We created definitions for all the metrics that were on the scorecard. We created a document that actually was a glossary of terms to make sure that they were all educated on how each of these metrics, there's leading metrics and lagging indicators, and how all of that fit together. So it's a process that everybody needs to be engaged in. It can't just be the senior leadership team. It needs to be the entire organization, so they understand how their daily role and their daily activities impact everything that they do rolls up to the corporate strategy. And and where we work together, we did this as a group group-wide activity and included everybody in the process. We incorporated those core values into our business processes. We created a reward and recognition program around those core values. So everyone was engaged in the why, and now it was just, okay, let's cascade all these goals down to tactical and daily activities, still never losing sight of that North Star of this is why we're doing this.
Any things to avoid or don'ts when it comes to strategy?
Don't go it alone. Don't do it in a room with 4 or 5, with your team. Yeah. Again, it's got to be inclusive. It's got to be communicated well. That's probably the biggest downfall of people creating a strategy and then it sits on the shelf in a book, in a binder. How many times have you and I both been through that? So it has to be actionable. It has to be, and the best way of doing that is to be inclusive. Includes everybody in the process and be honest about your reality. I mean, again, going back to the SWOT analysis, when you're really identifying your strengths and your weaknesses, be honest about it. Yeah. Because be very honest about your weaknesses. Don't try to, sugarcoat something. It's just be honest about it, because you need to come up with strategies to mitigate those weaknesses. Right. And so that would be and then be bold. Be willing to take risk. If you're risk averse, you're not going to take advantage of opportunities that are presented to you and your organization. One of the examples that I think about often is when we were challenged about the email channel and what to do with it and live chat, and when I finally got the answer that I was the one that could make that decision And I knew from my call center colleagues and working with the customer contact council, they were like, oh, email channel is not something I would suggest you have if you're starting a call center. So when we made that decision to turn it off, we did test, but it was risky. We did a test for 2 weeks because if you had gone out and asked our customers, what do you think about it if we turn off email, they would have said one thing. But by testing it, actions speak louder than words. And their actions said they were fine with it because we got no complaints over the 2 weeks that we had turned it off. So once we tested that, we were sure that it was fine and to shut it down, and that's what we did. And then the live chat channel just took off from there and ended up being a lot more successful getting patients' questions answered versus the email that kept going back and forth 5 times before a patient's question was fully answered.
How did you help your team incorporate and build strategy?
Well, it started early on in my career, my last career with my team, and really wanting to create a strategic plan for the first time. When I was asked to lead up the National Cancer Information Center for ACS, there was no strategic plan. There was a mission and vision, and they had been in operation for a good, 10 years at the time. And so myself, along with my team, we sought out strategic planning courses at UT, and I went to them first, and then I was like, my team really needs to participate in this as well. And then after they took strategic planning courses, we engaged our organizational development team in HR, and then we started that process. And it started out, we were all green at the time, and we all started, but we had to start somewhere. And over the course of a couple of years, we modified and tweaked our plan, and again, communicated it to the staff. The staff were engaged from the very beginning, helping us create our vision and our mission and our core values. And so they were engaged from the very beginning. And we had our communications manager heavily involved. She was a part of our strategic team, so she was always able to communicate to the floor, to the staff, what was going on with the strategy, what was going on with our plan, the balanced scorecard. I felt like it was well communicated. We had a status report every month that tied what was going on to the floor and tied back to all the measures in the scorecard in a way that the specialists could better understand it than just throwing numbers at them. Our communications manager did a great job of that. And then I believe over time, we got better and better at it, and actually other departments embraced our format and took it and used it in other departments at ACS. So that was really great to see. And as time went on, one of the things we were good at, one of our strengths that we had implemented back in 2008 was work from home. We started that work from home program, and with our high performers, and it was so successful. I think we retained 96% of our star performers for the first 6 years the program was in operation. Well, then, as you know, when we were faced with our lease expiring, we went down the path of searching for where's the building we should be, and I think all along it was pretty clear to the senior executive team that Austin would not be a candidate because of the costs had risen so much. So even though I still had a glimmer of hope that we could perhaps convince them to stay here in a smaller footprint. Well, when the location was announced that we were moving to Denton, Texas, that was going to be the location, I knew we were going to, just from a short pulse check-in with the leadership team, I knew we were going to lose about 97% of the leaders that we had cultivated and trained, and all that knowledge for 20 years was going to walk out the door. So that's when you put that risk hat on and you're like, okay, can we do this? Yeah. Is it risky? And we had already interviewed many organizations that had gone or had a virtual larger footprint than us, and were warned against going above 50%. And so having that knowledge, we still had to take the risk of, okay, it's either going 100% or moving to Denton and having to lose many of our leadership team in the process. So I think when we looked at that SWOT analysis, going back to that example, our strengths were we were great at working from home. We knew how to do it. We had worked through all the technical issues. We had processes for how to deal with outages and when to take PTO and when it was paid time off. What we didn't have solved was how did we recruit and hire and onboard virtually, and how did we train virtually? As you know, we had a 9-week curriculum, both in classroom and out of classroom, training program that we had to convert from in classroom to virtual. So our strategy, we had, I think at the time when we announced it, we had over 12 months to make the transition. So collaborating with our talent development team and our trainers, and we had the whole work group and the project that led us to go virtual. We had a strategy to convert the curriculum by January, and then we were going to test the strategy while we still had the brick and mortar building. And as you recall, we tested it. We brought the people into the building, we spread them out across the contact center, and they logged in as if they were at home. The trainers were in the training room virtually training, and then we had support staff in case they had problems. We got the chance to test that out twice in the building and refined any tweaks that we needed to make, so that by May we were ready to have our very first virtual class trained from home before we actually shut down the building. And then we also had strategies working with local offices to help us with the I-9 forms. And again, that was all like, how can we get this done, working with the resources that we have throughout the organization. And that's how we were able to accomplish that. Because you were part of the culture committee, and that was the key thing that we were worried about, losing our strong culture. And at the time, when when I insisted that we have cameras and that we use cameras for our one-on-ones with our supervisors and our meetings, at the time, people were like, well, I don't want to turn on my camera. But in the end, it was a key strategy to retain that connectivity with our staff. And having hindsight, look at what the companies that didn't go have a virtual footprint struggled last year during the pandemic when they had a couple of days notice to get all their staff home. Absolutely. ACS was all well positioned because their staff were already home. Yeah, it wasn't a challenge. So a risk well paid off. Absolutely. Yeah, and I remember, one of the things that we learned also is that once we had our plan was a 3 to 5 year plan. There were things on there that were 3 years out, 2 years out. And I remember our frontline staff and our supervisors would look at that plan and they would get overwhelmed with all the things that were on the plan. So we had to initiate the top three strategy, meaning we ended up highlighting, these are the top 3 things. So if push comes to shove and you have to ask yourself, what do I need to focus on? It's these 3 things. These are the 3 things that are most important. Yes, there's a lot other things on the plan, but keep in mind, this is a 3-year plan. Yeah. Some of the things that are on there may not even be needed to start until 2 years from now. Yeah. So one of the differences is that we were going to be transparent 100%, as much as we could. Yeah. So sharing the budget was a big change from the previous years that the staff had been exposed to my team. So we shared the budget. We opened up the books. We in our town halls, we showed them where we were to plan and how far under or over. And by doing that, the staff, again, could connect the dots on how they impacted. And again, we were a nonprofit, so it was important for them to understand how we were spending money and how the strategies that we're doing were saving us money. Implementing the voluntary time off. Those were things that had never been done in the organization, and we had to go to the COO and explain to them, this is what we're doing. I know it's different from the rest of the organization, but look at how much money it's saving us in our operation. Going and advocating for staff salary increases over and over and over, and never given up on that. That was, and that showed staff, again, it was called out in our strategy that, one of our goals was to, hire, train, and retain top talent. And the only way to do that was to make sure we were paying a competitive salary. So I had to walk the talk and go, it took me several years, but after advocating, and got our new CEO, we were eventually able to do that.
How do you practice and apply strategy in your daily life?
So 2 areas that are dear to my heart, obviously, are running and marathon running, trail running, and then also eating healthy. And as I said earlier, time is limited. We need to be strategic about our time. I will always be grateful for my dear friend Meredith Terranova, who, our dietitian, dear friend, who taught us about how to purchase healthy, how to cook healthy, and how to be strategic about both of those. And I'll give you an example. When you go in the grocery store, you should avoid the center of the store. The bulk of your food should come from the perimeter of the store, because that's all the healthy food. And so I'm sure you've heard this, never go to the grocery store hungry, because you'll add more things to your cart. But it is true, the healthier things are around the perimeter of the grocery store. She taught us, like, okay, be strategic about when you cook. Don't ever turn the oven on for one meal. You should always cook to have leftovers. Same thing with the grill. Never turn the grill on if you're grilling for just one meal, because you've already got it heated. Throw something else on there for something else. I like to plan out my entire week. I look at my schedule and look and say, okay, I've got meetings. I've got this one day, it looks like I've got free if I needed to run out and get something, but on these other days, I need to have something prepared. Well, if I wait until the morning of and I don't have anything, then I get stressed out, and then I end up figuring out what am I gonna do, and then I usually choose the wrong thing, and it's not healthy. So that is one area. And then of course we get vegetables, we get fruit, and we come home and we cut it all up right there before, so it's all in your little zip bags or Tupperware, your plasticware, and then you can quickly put together a salad in less than 3 minutes to take to work or to eat at home. And so those are things that I've lived by for years, and it's helped me. I've always come to meetings with a bowl of fruit or a piece of fruit, where I don't have to go to the vending machine. Right. Because the vending machine is that easy way out. Oh, I didn't plan accordingly. I'm gonna just go and get something that's not healthy for me. And then I think with my running, being strategic about, when I first set my goal on training for the Boston Marathon, I had only ran 2 marathons, and I was nowhere near. I was over about 20 minutes off of the time I needed to qualify. And so I did some research, and I identified, just by looking at their website, the times that you would need in my age to qualify. And my goal at the time would have not got me in there. So many people had run faster. So I set out to train with a 5-minute goal lead. So under my goal by 5 minutes. And that was my strategy. The strategy was to run with faster people, but to run with that goal in mind. And even though I knew where my reality was, I knew where I was at, I knew where I needed to get to, I had plenty of people tell me that I wasn't going to achieve that goal, especially at the race that I had selected. New York Marathon was where I was going to try to beat my time to qualify for New York. And if you know anything about the New York Marathon, it's one of the largest marathons in the world. So people are always saying, oh, you don't beat yourself up, you won't make it. I think after about 12 people tell me that, I decided I wasn't going to mention it to anybody anymore. Then I had a strategy of, okay, what's my race day strategy? And so I put together that race day strategy with my coach based on starting slow, building strong, building and finishing strong. And I knew exactly where in the mileage I was going to speed up my pace. It worked. It worked flawlessly. I started slow. I let the pace group that I was going to finish with go past me, and at mile 21, just like my plan, I caught up with them, and then surpassed them, and actually came in 15 seconds before them. But in running, you need to be strategic about having a plan A, and many times you need plan B, C, and D, because if plan A falls you fall short on plan A, you don't want to just drop out, and you don't want to let the negativity get into you like, well, I didn't meet that, I might as well just quit. You immediately switch to plan B. And like, okay, plan B is I didn't meet plan A goal, my first goal, I'm going to meet the second goal. And then if that doesn't work, you go to the next one. So you need to be strategic about having that done in advance instead of trying to create it in the moment.
Thank you so much for your expertise and knowledge, Kevin. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.